The midnight shift at the Pacific Deep Space Monitoring Station was usually quiet. Most operators spent their time watching endless streams of data, looking for anything unusual in the vast emptiness of space. But tonight was different. Dr. James Anderson rubbed his tired eyes as he stared at the strange pattern appearing on his screen. At first, he thought it was just another piece of space debris, one of the thousands of objects his team tracked daily. But there was something odd about this signal. "Hey Tom, can you take a look at this?" He called out to his colleague, who was half asleep in the next monitoring station. Tom Wheeler, a veteran signal analyst, walked over while sipping his fourth cup of coffee. "What you got?" Tom leaned over James's shoulder, squinting at the screen. The pattern pulsed with an unusual rhythm, nothing like the regular satellite signals or space junk they usually detected. "It's coming from beyond Neptune's orbit," James explained, typing rapidly to enhance the signal. "But look at the pattern. It's too regular to be natural, too complex to be one of ours." Tom's coffee cup froze halfway to his mouth. "Run it through the decoder." James had already started the process. The powerful computers of the monitoring station began breaking down the signal's complex layers. As the data streamed across the screen, both men's eyes widened. "This can't be right," Tom whispered, now fully awake. "These are mathematical sequences, prime numbers, Fibonacci series. And is that the value of P?" James nodded slowly. "It's a message. Someone out there is trying to get our attention." The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. More analysts were called in, and the station's most powerful receivers were redirected to focus on the signal. As they decoded more of the message, an incredible story began to emerge. "It's a distress call," James announced to the crowded room of scientists and military officials who had gathered by morning. He pointed to the large screen showing the decoded message. "There's a fleet of ships stranded in the Kuiper Belt. They've suffered some kind of critical system failure." "Ships? Alien ships?" General Robert Wilson of the United Earth Space Command leaned forward, his face stern but curious. "Yes, sir. Based on the data they've sent, we're looking at approximately 300 vessels of various sizes. They're carrying what appears to be refugees, millions of them." The room erupted in murmured conversations. James waited for them to quiet down before continuing. "Their propulsion systems have been damaged by what they describe as a quantum surge from a nearby star. They can maintain life support, but they can't move. And according to their calculations," he paused, double-checking the numbers, "they have less than 3 months before their resources run out." General Wilson stood up, his presence commanding immediate silence. "Do we have any way to verify this isn't a hoax?" "The signal's origin point matches their claimed position," Tom spoke up. "And the technology required to transmit this message across such distances, it's far beyond our current capabilities. This has to be real." The general nodded slowly. "And they're asking for our help. Us? Why not some other advanced civilization?" James pulled up another section of the decoded message. "They say they've tried. The nearest advanced civilization is too far to reach them in time. We're their only hope, the only spacefaring civilization close enough to help." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity, often considered a backward species by its own estimation, was about to face its greatest challenge. They had 3 months to figure out how to save millions of alien lives with technology that was probably centuries behind their stranded visitors. General Wilson straightened his uniform. "Dr. Anderson, Mr. Wheeler, I want you both on the response team. We need to let them know we received their message and are preparing to help." He turned to address the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, as of this moment, we are on humanity's most important mission. The world is about to change forever." As James began composing humanity's first message to their distant visitors, he couldn't help but smile. All those years of watching the stars, hoping to find something. And now the stars were watching back, calling for help. The real question was, could humanity rise to the challenge? The first light of dawn was breaking over the Pacific as the response team began their work. Humanity's greatest adventure was about to begin, and it would start not with a conquest or a war, but with a call for help answered. 2 weeks after receiving the distress signal, the research vessel Horizon pushed through the dark void of space. Captain Michael Reed stood on the bridge, watching the distant specks of light that marked the alien fleet grow larger with each passing hour. "Main engines performing at optimal levels," reported Jack, the ship's engineer. "We should reach the fleet's position in approximately 40 minutes." The Horizon was Earth's newest and fastest ship, built to explore the outer solar system. Now it carried humanity's first contact team, a carefully chosen group of scientists, engineers, and diplomats. None of them had expected their first meeting with aliens would be a rescue mission. "All hands, prepare for first contact procedures," Captain Reed announced over the ship's speakers. His voice was calm, but his hands gripped the railing tightly. They had trained for this moment, but training couldn't fully prepare anyone for meeting actual aliens. As they drew closer, the true scale of the situation became clear. The alien ships were massive. The smallest was twice the size of Earth's largest vessel, while the biggest ones could have housed entire cities. Their designs were strange, with smooth curves and materials that seemed to shift colors in the pale sunlight. "Look at those ships," whispered Dr. Lisa Brown, the team's xenobiologist. "They're beautiful, but something's wrong. They're completely dark except for basic life support systems." She was right. The huge vessels hung motionless in space, most of their systems apparently dead. Only faint lights flickered across their hulls, likely emergency power keeping their occupants alive. The communication system crackled. A voice spoke in perfect English, transmitted from the largest ship. "Earth vessel, we welcome you. Thank you for answering our call. Please dock at the indicated bay." A soft blue light began pulsing on one of the massive ships. Captain Reed guided the Horizon carefully toward it, his years of experience evident in every precise movement. "How are they speaking English?" someone whispered. "They've had 2 weeks to study our languages from our broadcasts," Dr. Brown explained. Given their technology level, that was probably enough time. The docking procedure was surprisingly smooth. The alien technology automatically adjusted to match their ship's systems. As the airlock sealed, readings showed the atmosphere beyond was safe for humans to breathe. Captain Reed led the first team through the airlock. They walked slowly down a corridor that seemed to be made of flowing metal, their footsteps echoing strangely in the alien ship. They emerged into a large chamber and got their first look at the aliens. The beings before them were tall and slim, with smooth blue-tinted skin that seemed to shimmer. They stood on 2 legs but had 4 arms, each ending in delicate fingers. Their large eyes were completely black, but somehow managed to convey warmth and relief. "I am First Speaker Wren," said one of the aliens, stepping forward. "We represent the Stellar Confederation. We are deeply grateful for your response to our distress call." Captain Reed stepped forward and gave a small bow. "I'm Captain Michael Reed of Earth. We're here to help. Can you tell us more about your situation?" The aliens shared what looked like worried glances. "Our fleet was transporting refugees from a dying star system when we encountered an unexpected quantum surge. It damaged our main drive systems, technology that your scientists would call space-folding engines. Without them, we are stranded." "How many people are we talking about?" Dr. Brown asked. 3,400,622 souls, Wren replied precisely. "Many are in suspended animation to conserve resources, but even so, our life support systems will fail in less than 70 of your Earth days." Captain Reed nodded gravely. "We'll need to see your engine rooms and understand exactly what we're dealing with. Our engineers might not understand your advanced technology, but maybe we can find another way to help." Wren's expression changed in a way the humans couldn't quite read. "You should know, Captain, that by our standards, your species is quite primitive. We appreciate your willingness to help, but our technology is centuries beyond yours." Reed smiled slightly. Sometimes fresh eyes see solutions that others miss. "Let us at least try." The aliens led them deeper into the ship, toward the engine rooms. None of the humans knew it yet, but their supposed primitive status was about to become their greatest advantage. Sometimes the oldest solutions were the best ones, and humanity was about to prove it to the galaxy. The alien engine room was both beautiful and confusing. Jack, the Horizon's chief engineer, walked around the massive chamber, looking at the dead equipment. Everything was sleek and smooth, with no visible moving parts. To his trained eye, it looked more like art than machinery. "And you say this all works by folding space?" he asked, running his hand along the cool metal surface. First Speaker Wren nodded. "Yes. The quantum drives create a bubble of folded spacetime around each ship, allowing us to move vast distances instantly. But the surge damaged the quantum field generators. We cannot repair them without specialized facilities." Jack pulled out his tablet and started taking notes. Behind him, Captain Reed and Dr. Brown were talking quietly with other members of the engineering team. They had spent the last 6 hours examining the alien technology, and one thing was becoming clear: they couldn't fix it. "I think I have an idea," Jack said suddenly, putting down his tablet. "You said you can't move because your fancy space-folding engines are broken. But what about regular engines? You know, chemical rockets." The aliens looked at each other in what seemed like confusion. "Chemical propulsion?" Wren asked. "We haven't used such primitive technology in over 1,000 years. It's incredibly slow and inefficient." "But it works," Jack insisted. "And right now, slow movement is better than no movement at all. Your life support has less than 70 days left. Even with chemical rockets, we could move your ships to Earth orbit in about 50 days. The alien engineers gathered around, their black eyes showing what looked like curiosity. One of them, who had been introduced as Tech Master Lin, spoke up. "But the fuel requirements would be enormous, and the thrust needed to move ships of this size." "We've been moving big things in space for 100 years, Jack said, getting excited. "Sure, your ships are bigger than anything we've dealt with before, but the principles are the same. We just need to scale up our existing solutions." He walked over to his tablet and started drawing rough sketches. "Look, we could attach multiple heavy-lift rocket engines to each ship. We have the designs, and with your advanced manufacturing capabilities, we could build them right here." Captain Reed joined the discussion. "How many engines would we need per ship?" Jack did some quick calculations. For the biggest ships, maybe 40 or 50 engines each. For the smaller ones, perhaps 20. We'd need to build thousands of rockets. Thousands. Wren's voice carried clear shock. That's incredibly primitive. The fuel waste alone would be worth it to save 3 million lives," Jack interrupted. He turned to Captain Reed. "Sir, we can do this. We'll need help from every space agency on Earth. We'll need to run the biggest manufacturing operation in human history, but it's possible." Reed nodded slowly. "How would we control all these rockets?" "The coordination needed would be." "We can use your ship's computers for that," Jack said, turning to the aliens. "Your systems can handle the complex calculations needed to fire all the engines in perfect sequence. We just need to build the rockets and attach them properly." Tech Master Lin had been studying Jack's sketches. "The concept is surprisingly sound. Primitive, yes, but it could work. However, attaching such engines to our hulls would require extensive modification. The heat and vibration from chemical rockets. That's why I want to bring in our deep-sea welders," Jack explained. "They're experts at working with high-pressure systems and difficult materials. If they can weld oil pipelines at the bottom of the ocean, they can figure out how to safely attach rockets to your ships." The room fell quiet as everyone considered the plan. It was ambitious, maybe even crazy, but it was also their only option. Captain Reed broke the silence. First Speaker Wren, with your permission, I'd like to send this proposal back to Earth. We'll need to start manufacturing rockets immediately if we want to meet the deadline. Wren looked around the engine room at the dead quantum drives that represented the peak of their civilization's technology. Then he looked at Jack's simple drawings of chemical rockets, technology his people had abandoned centuries ago. To think, he said quietly, that our salvation might come from technology we considered obsolete. He turned to Captain Reed. You have our permission, Captain, and our trust. Jack smiled as he started making more detailed plans. Sometimes the old ways were the best ways, and humanity was about to prove that being primitive wasn't always a bad thing. The next 30 days passed in a blur of activity. Earth's response to the crisis was unlike anything in human history. Every major space agency and aerospace company turned their full attention to building rockets. Factories ran 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In the alien fleet, massive manufacturing bays that once created delicate quantum technology now produced primitive chemical rockets based on human designs. The aliens watched in amazement as teams of humans worked with determined efficiency. They're like machines, Tech Master Lin commented, watching a group of welders attach mounting brackets to a ship's hull. They barely stopped to rest. First Speaker Wren nodded. And they keep finding solutions we would never have considered. The biggest challenge had come when the first test mounting failed. The heat from the rocket engines had started to damage the alien hull material. The human solution. They brought in ice cream makers. It's actually quite clever, explained Bill, one of the lead welders, as he showed the aliens their solution. We're using the same cooling systems that keep ice cream frozen, but we've modified them to protect your hull from the rocket heat. Simple, but it works. Time was their greatest enemy. The massive screens in the fleet's command center displayed a constant countdown. 40 days of life support remaining. They had already attached rockets to 50 ships, but hundreds more waited. Status report, Captain Reed called out during one of their daily meetings. The command center was crowded with both humans and aliens, all focused on their shared mission. Jack, now leading the entire engineering operation, stepped forward. We've completed work on all small and medium ships. The big ones are the challenge now. We're attaching 40 rockets to each one, and every connection has to be perfect. How many ships still need work? Reed asked. 32 of the large ones, Jack replied. At our current pace, we'll finish with 5 days to spare, but we can't afford any mistakes or delays. The work was dangerous. 3 welders had already been injured when a cooling system failed, but for every injured worker, 10 more volunteered to take their place. Humanity had embraced this mission as their own. One morning, an alien child somehow got into the work area. She watched the humans with huge black eyes, clutching what looked like a toy. A welder named Mike noticed her and took a break from his work. "Hello there," he said gently, kneeling down to her level. "Want to see something cool?" He pulled out a small model rocket he'd made from spare parts. The alien child's eyes grew even wider as he showed her how it worked. Soon, other alien children started visiting the work areas. The humans began making toys for them during break times, turning scraps into simple rockets and ships. "I don't understand," Tech Master Lin said to Jack, watching these interactions. "Your people are working themselves to exhaustion, yet they take time to play with our children." Jack smiled. "That's exactly why we're working so hard. It's not just about saving ships. It's about saving families, saving children. That makes every minute of work worth it." The breakthrough came on day 35. The welding teams, now working in perfect sync with alien assistance, completed 5 large ships in a single day. The new record lifted everyone's spirits. At this rate, Reed announced in the evening briefing, "We'll finish with 7 days to spare." But space had one more challenge for them. A small meteor shower was detected heading toward the fleet. It wasn't large enough to cause serious damage, but it could delay their work. "We can't stop now," Jack declared. We'll set up shield platforms using our shuttlecraft. The welding teams will keep working behind the shield wall. The aliens were shocked. You would risk your ships to protect our construction? Wren asked. Of course, Reed replied simply. That's what friends do. The word friends caused a ripple of emotion through the alien observers. They had called humans primitive, but here they were, risking their lives and resources without hesitation. As the shield platforms moved into position and work continued, one thing became clear. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology, or even their innovation. It was their unwavering determination to help others, no matter the cost. The countdown continued. 35 days of life support remaining, and 30 ships still to go. But now, no one doubted they would succeed. The Deep Space Monitoring Station had changed a lot in the past 40 days. What was once a quiet observation post now buzzed with activity. Dr. James Anderson stood at his old monitoring station, but instead of watching for signals, he was coordinating with underwater welding teams from the Pacific. The pressure testing results are in, announced Maria, a deep-sea welder with 20 years of experience. Her face on the video screen showed signs of exhaustion, but her eyes sparkled with excitement. Our new welding technique works even better in space than it does underwater. This was the kind of breakthrough they desperately needed. With 25 days of life support remaining and 20 ships still waiting for rockets, every minute counted. The aliens said the metal in their ships couldn't be welded. Tom Wheeler commented, looking at the test results. Guess they never met our deep-sea welders. Maria's team had discovered that the same techniques they used to weld oil pipelines in crushing ocean depths could be modified to work on alien metals. It was another example of how humanity's primitive experience was saving the day. Up in the fleet, the discovery led to a burst of activity. The welding teams could now work 3 times faster, and the connections were stronger than ever. But it wasn't just about speed. It was about trust. Watch this, said Maria, demonstrating the technique to a group of alien engineers. She moved her welding torch in a precise pattern, making the alien metal flow like water. It's all about feeling the metal, understanding how it wants to move. The aliens were fascinated. Their automated manufacturing systems had never considered such an approach. One of them, a young engineer, asked to try the welding herself. That's the spirit, Maria encouraged, guiding the alien's hands. Don't fight the metal, dance with it. Across the fleet, similar scenes played out. Humans taught aliens their primitive skills, while aliens shared their advanced knowledge. The combination proved powerful. In the command center, Captain Reed reviewed the latest progress reports. 16 ships completed in 10 days, he announced. That's our best rate yet. Jack nodded, pointing to a detailed hologram of the fleet. Maria's new welding technique is a game changer. But there's something else happening too. Look at how the teams are working together now. He was right. Human welders worked alongside alien engineers as if they'd been doing it for years. They had developed their own shared language of hand signals and technical terms. Some aliens had even started telling human jokes, though no one quite understood them. The alien children had become a common sight in the work areas, watching the humans with fascination. The workers had set up a small school during break times, where they taught the kids about rockets and engines. In return, the children taught them alien games and songs. It's remarkable. First speaker Wren said, watching these interactions, "We thought we were so advanced, but we had forgotten something important. The value of hands-on experience, of learning from each other." The 15th day brought another challenge. The cooling systems on one of the largest ships started to fail. Without them, the rocket attachments would be impossible. The ship's 300,000 sleeping passengers were at risk. Traditional repairs would take too long. Tech Master Lynn reported grimly. "We need a new solution." That's when Bill, one of the ice cream maker engineers, had an idea. What if we use the principles of deep-sea pressure regulation? We could create a cooling web, like coral under the ocean. The aliens didn't understand the reference, but they trusted the humans enough to try. The solution worked perfectly. By adapting deep-sea technology, they created a new type of cooling system that worked even better than the original. "You know what's funny?" Jack said to Captain Reed as they watched the repair teams celebrate. "Everything that's helping us save the fleet comes from what they considered primitive technology. Deep-sea welding, mechanical cooling, chemical rockets, all things they gave up centuries ago." Reed smiled. "Sometimes the old ways are the best ways, and sometimes it takes fresh eyes to see the value in what others have forgotten." With 15 days of life support remaining and 12 ships to go, the mood in the fleet was positive. Humanity had brought more than just technical solutions. They had brought hope, determination, and the invaluable gift of practical experience. The aliens were beginning to understand that true advancement wasn't just about having the most sophisticated technology. Sometimes it was about remembering the basics and not being too proud to get your hands dirty. 10 days of life support remained when the last rocket was attached. The massive alien fleet, now bristling with thousands of human-made engines, waited silently in space. The moment of truth had arrived. "All ships report ready," Jack announced in the fleet's main control room. The space was packed with both humans and aliens, all holding their breath. Final systems check complete. Captain Reed stood next to First Speaker Wren, both looking at the massive display showing all 300 ships. Each vessel was now surrounded by a cloud of chemical rockets, looking like giant dandelions floating in space. "To think," Wren said softly, "that our fate now rests on technology we considered obsolete. Are you certain this will work?" Reed nodded. "We've tested everything 3 times. Your computers will control the rockets, making sure they fire in perfect sequence. It's time." The plan was both simple and incredibly complex. They would move the fleet in groups of 50 ships, starting with the smallest vessels. Each group would take about 8 days to reach Earth orbit. With only 10 days of life support left, they had exactly one chance to get it right. "All ships in Group 1, prepare for engine start," Jack called out. The control room fell silent. Starting countdown. 10, 9, 8. On the display, the first 50 ships glowed green, their human-made rockets ready to fire. Years of human space experience had led to this moment. 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Thousands of rockets burst to life simultaneously. The sight was incredible. A massive wall of flame pushing against the darkness of space. The first group of ships began to move slowly, gathering speed with each passing second. "First group acceleration nominal," reported Tom from his station. "All rockets functioning within expected parameters. Course is steady." A cheer went up from the human engineers. The aliens watched in amazement as their ships, dead in space just days ago, began their journey to safety. But they couldn't celebrate for long. The second group needed to launch within 12 hours, followed by the third group 12 hours after that. Every minute had to be perfectly coordinated. "Second group, begin pre-launch sequence," Reed ordered. The massive operation continued like a well-oiled machine. The real challenge came with the last group, the largest ships. Each one carried hundreds of thousands of sleeping refugees and required precise handling. A single mistake could spell disaster. "Final group, preparing for launch," Jack announced 8 hours later. Everyone tensed. These ships had the most rockets, which meant more things could go wrong. 8, 7, 6. Maria's voice came over the radio from her position on one of the welding ships. "All welds are holding steady. These babies aren't going anywhere. We don't want them to." 3, 2, 1. Ignition. The largest ships shuddered as their rockets fired. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly, majestically, they began to move. "All ships are underway," Tom reported, his voice filled with relief. "We did it." The control room erupted in celebration. Humans and aliens hugged each other, crying tears of joy. They had achieved what many thought impossible. But their work wasn't done. For the next 8 days, they had to monitor every ship, making constant adjustments to keep the fleet together. Teams worked in shifts, watching engine temperatures, checking structural integrity, and making sure every vessel stayed on course. On the 6th day, Earth became visible to the fleet, a blue jewel growing larger by the hour. Many aliens saw their new home for the first time, pressing against windows to catch a glimpse of the planet that had sent help when all seemed lost. "Look at that view," Reed said to Wren as they watched Earth grow larger. "In 2 days, your people will be safe." Wren's large eyes shimmered with emotion. "Thanks to humanity's primitive technology and determination, we will never forget this." The fleet moved steadily toward Earth, a parade of giant ships being pushed through space by human ingenuity and alien coordination. It was a sight no one who saw it would ever forget. The day humanity's old technology saved one of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. As they approached Earth orbit, the aliens began to understand something important. True advancement wasn't just about having the newest technology. Sometimes it was about remembering where you came from and knowing that every piece of knowledge, no matter how basic it seemed, had value. 1 year had passed since the Great Rescue. Earth had changed dramatically. The sight of massive alien ships in orbit had become normal, and the planet buzzed with new energy and purpose. Dr. James Anderson stood at his old monitoring station, now part of a joint human-alien space command center. The same screens that once caught the first distress signal now showed constant traffic between Earth and the fleet. "Another supply run ready for launch," Tom Wheeler announced from his station. "The aliens' temporary orbital habitats are fully stocked for another month." The renovation of the alien ships was proceeding well. Teams of human engineers worked alongside alien technicians, combining both civilizations' technologies in new and exciting ways. "You should see what they're doing with the quantum drives," Jack said, walking into the control room. He had just returned from one of the orbital workshops. "Once we showed them how to protect against power surges using our primitive breaker systems, they figured out how to make their engines even better than before." But the biggest changes weren't technological. In the orbital habitats and on Earth's surface, humans and aliens worked together daily. The aliens had started a program they called the Human Touch Initiative, learning hands-on skills they had forgotten over centuries of automation. First Speaker Wren, now Earth's ambassador to the Stellar Confederation, stood addressing a mixed crowd of humans and aliens at the United Nations. "1 year ago, we thought ourselves superior," he said, his voice carrying emotion. "We had advanced technology, but we had lost something more valuable. The ability to work with our hands, to feel the materials we used, to understand the basic principles that made everything work." The audience included Maria and her team of deep-sea welders, now famous across 2 civilizations. They had started a school teaching both humans and aliens the art of understanding materials by touch and instinct. "Your primitive technology saved us," Wren continued. "But more than that, your spirit, your willingness to try what we thought impossible, your determination to help strangers. These things have changed how we see the universe." In orbit, the alien children who once watched humans work now attended mixed schools. They learned both advanced quantum physics and basic mechanical engineering. Some had even started taking apart and rebuilding old machines, much to their parents' amazement. Captain Reed, now Admiral Reed, watched from his new office as a group of young aliens practiced welding under Maria's supervision. "They're naturals," she reported proudly. "Once they stop overthinking it and start feeling the metal, they pick it up quickly." The Stellar Confederation had changed too. News of how humanity saved the refugee fleet spread across the galaxy. Other advanced civilizations began rediscovering their own forgotten, primitive technologies, realizing that progress wasn't always about moving forward. Sometimes it meant remembering where you came from. "Earth has been officially invited to join the Confederation," Dr. Brown announced, reading the latest transmission. "But here's the interesting part. They want us to lead a new division focused on practical engineering and hands-on skills." The aliens had learned that true advancement meant balancing the new with the old, the theoretical with the practical. Earth's primitive technology had proven that sometimes the simplest solutions were the best ones. In the orbital habitats, alien children played with toy rockets made by human engineers, while their parents learned to fix machines without relying on automation. Humanity's greatest gift to their new friends wasn't just saving their lives. It was teaching them to trust their hands and instincts again. "You know what the best part is," Jack said to Admiral Reed as they watched Earth rotate below them. "We're learning as much from them as they're learning from us. Their theory combined with our practical experience. Imagine what we can achieve together." The legacy of the Great Rescue wasn't just a saved fleet or new friendships. It was a lesson that echoed across the galaxy. No knowledge was truly obsolete, no skill unworthy of respect. Progress wasn't a straight line forward, but a circle that sometimes needed to close, connecting the most advanced ideas with the most basic principles. As night fell over the Pacific Monitoring Station, where it all began, Dr. Anderson smiled at the sight of alien ships glowing in orbit. Humanity had been called primitive, but they had proven that being primitive simply meant being closer to the fundamental truths of how things worked. And sometimes, that was exactly what the universe needed.